This slide here has got a bunch of challenges here, and these are challenges that you may all face on certain projects. Maybe you face all these on all projects, I'm not sure, but just kind of read through these and look at these different challenges that are out there today, and just kind of tone in on which ones kind of hit your hot button, as far as which one really drives home that you wish you could have a solution that would kind of fix some of these challenges that we have. There's a lot of them out there. You know, schedule's a big one, budget, rework, trying to you know, maintain or track changes in there when we do have changes, you know, tracking progress as far as reporting and material management. Inefficient coordination with the construction team, again, revision control, QA/QC, or accurate cable links, routes, and bill of materials, or inefficient design and modeling, either that you receive or that y'all are doing. Either way, these are all challenges, and so I think that the Aeries software will touch on each one of these areas. I'm probably not going to have time to show you everything about Aeries, because it is a very large program that does a lot of things, but it does have tools to help you in each one of these challenges that you may have today. So what is Aeries software? Let me just kind of describe it a little bit and give you a little bit of history about the software. Aeries was actually developed about 25 years ago when it was initially created. It was primarily used in the AutoCAD world for the oil and for industrial work, primarily in the oil and gas industry. But it was created by a gentleman who's an engineer, licensed engineer, and it was created for engineers by an engineer. And I think that's key right there, because there's a lot of MEP programs out there, but a lot of them will not have, I guess it's heavy on the mechanical side, heavy on the plumbing or piping side, and most of them are kind of weak on the electrical side, where it's almost like the electrical tools are an afterthought, or you know, it's not purposely built for that, whereas this program was purposely built by an engineer for engineers. But anyway, it was developed, like I said, primarily in the AutoCAD world. About 2 or 3 years ago, Southwire, the cable manufacturing company, found out about this software and was very interested in it, and they're in the business, I guess, of trying to make things easier for their customers and provide tools for their customers. And so they saw this as a tool that would benefit their customers, and so they actually purchased the company and purchased the software. And when Southwire purchased it, they initially saw that there was a huge need to transition this software into the commercial arena and open it up into Revit. And so for the last 2 years or 3 years, they've been developing this inside the Revit platform. It still works inside the AutoCAD platform, but it's now it works inside the both platforms, AutoCAD and or Revit. But it's a standalone database program. And this standalone database can communicate back and forth with AutoCAD and Revit. It will push information, it will pull information as far as extracting information from the models. So if we have a model, we can push the electrical equipment into the database. Then we can use the database, Aeries database, to help us with the cable sizing. It will help us with the cable routing, and also the make sure that we have the proper size raceways in there when we do model our raceways. And so it's a very intelligent tool in that aspect. It is one of the few pieces of software that I've seen out there that will successfully transition information from Revit to AutoCAD or AutoCAD to Revit without losing the intelligence. And it does that because it is a standalone database that can talk and communicate with each program. I think it also bridges the gap between the engineering, the designers, and the construction field. If we can get our engineering team on board with this, that the transition to the contractors is very smooth, in that they can just take over that database, and the information in the database is already there. And so I think it kind of eases that transition. But we do have engineers, design teams that are using this software just for the engineering side of it, and we do have contractors using it just for the construction side. And of course, we also have, design build people that are using it, all the way through the process as well. So I think either party can take advantage of this. If we kind of look at the software, it's kind of divided into 4 different main modules. And really these modules kind of work behind the scenes. It's almost, as a user, you don't get caught up in this a lot, but there are 4 different main modules. There's Loadmatic, Traymatic, Cablematic, and Cablematic Builder, and each one of those will have a specific purpose. The Loadmatic is kind of where you typically will start, and that's where we enter in load information. So I guess if we look at our workflow, we're going to begin by loading in information into the database. And this can be done several ways. It can be done manually, just by typing information in. If we do have a model that's got information in it, we can extract it from the model either way. But one way or the other, we've got to get the information into the database as far as our equipment and our load information. Once that's kind of done, then we will begin locating the equipment inside the Revit model and placing that equipment, and this is going to give it some locations as far as the XYZ location, so the database completely understands exactly where that equipment is located inside the project. Once we locate the equipment, we begin modeling our raceways, and this is using, I guess, the Traymatic side of the program, but as far as inside of Revit, we can just use the normal conduit and cable tray commands that are there, because it's already got tools built into it. In the AutoCAD world, it does add some tools inside of AutoCAD to allow you to draw and model cable tray and conduits. But like I said, the Revit's got a pretty good tool that's already built into it, so it does just take advantage of the Revit conduits that's there. But it does, it's going to begin to put some information, some intelligence in that Revit conduit. And that's done by actually routing the cables. So that's the 4th step, is once we have the raceways completed, then we will route the cables. And this is, like I said, putting the intelligence in the raceway, in that conduit. Right now in Revit, conduit is pretty much just dumb plastic pipe or dumb metal pipe. There's no way of telling Revit what's inside that pipe. We don't know if it's too full, or if we're got too much cable in there, or if we're able to actually pull the cable that we're saying that's in there. And so by using the database, the Aeries database, to help us route the cables, it's going to put some intelligence in that raceway that then we can start doing calculations like pull calculations and things like that to ensure that our cables are successfully pulled in that raceway. And then finally, we can create a bill of material from that, and this bill of material can be done for the cables themselves and also the raceway. And so it's going to be an accurate bill of material that's there. And the beauty of all this is once we enter that information, into the database, we can the program's going to use that information throughout the entire process. We don't have to enter it in one program and then re-enter it in another program. It's taking it from the database and it's pushing and pulling it from AutoCAD or Revit and taking that information that you enter one time. So you only have to enter it once, whereas you may be entering it in multiple programs, multiple places currently today. So if we dive into this and look at it, like I said, you kind of begin by putting in the information into the database, and this is just a screenshot of one of the dialogues that's there, and this is just kind of building the network that we may have. And so on the right, we've got our different components of major pieces of equipment, and we can just drag and drop that equipment over and just kind of build the hierarchy of what's connected to what. So this is letting the program know what equipment we have and what it's connected to. Once we kind of build this hierarchy, there's other information that we'll need to have in there, and we can enter in the additional information about that equipment as far as the actual load, the voltage of that equipment or the cable that's connected to that equipment. We can enter that through either a dialog box and just type it in, or there's it's almost like a spreadsheet, but this is a view that's built into the program that we can just type it in much like we do in Excel. And if you do have an Excel file that's got information in it, as far as your equipment and load information, we can copy and paste that quickly into this this spreadsheet viewer here that we've got, this working viewer. And it's going to allow us to quickly put that in if we can copy and paste it. But this viewer, this is a live database that we're working in, and I'm not sure if you've ever worked in a live database. It does use Microsoft Access as the database engine. But databases are unforgiving. If there's no save button, there's no undo button in a database, whereas so you got to be a little bit careful. Whereas this spreadsheet view that we're looking at here, this is pulling information from the database, but as we enter information, it's not instantly changing it. So it allows us to correctly put the information in there, and then once we're done, it will allow us to save it back to the database. And so we're not actually working in the live database, we're working in a spreadsheet view that's pulling information from the database, just to kind of give you a safety net there so that you don't corrupt the database. So once we kind of have the information in the database, another benefit of the program is that it does have the ability to create one-line diagrams. I know that this has been a huge request, especially for Revit users, to be able to generate the one-line diagrams. It seems like the Revit should be able to do it because it knows what's in there and it should be able to connect the dots and do it, but it's not there yet. So this program does have the ability to create one-line diagrams. This is doing it in AutoCAD. Currently, it is working in AutoCAD. They're currently working on getting this to work in Revit as well. But for today, we can simply generate this in AutoCAD and link in this AutoCAD view into Revit and use it. And through the links, if something changes, we simply just refresh the one-line diagram just by clicking the button and tell it to refresh it, and it's going to update the one-line diagram. And if that's linked into Revit, then our Revit model is going to get updated as well as far as the view inside of Revit. So again, this is pulling the information from the database to generate this. This is just using AutoCAD blocks that you can customize and make these blocks look however you want to, but it's pulling the information in and creating this for you. So once we have the equipment and all the load information entered into the database, the first thing that I would do inside of Revit is start locating the equipment. And to locate the equipment, you may already have a Revit model that already has the equipment placed. If you do, we're just going to point the database to that equipment to let it know where it's located at. If it's not placed yet, if you're starting a model from scratch, then we can go ahead and place the equipment into the model, either using our own custom families, if you've got your own custom families, or it's got some generic families in there as well that we could use instead. So either way, either with your families or generic families, you could do either way. But we need to locate it. So let me just kind of walk you through that. Let me introduce you to my sample project. It's a very simple project. It's a two-story medical office building. And if I look at the floor plan, it's got an electrical room in one corner and a small electrical room in the other side of the building. But when you install the software, it does install a toolbar at the top, gives us some tools, and it also installs this palette. And this palette is listing all the equipment that I put into my database. And if I want to start placing this equipment, I can just pick on it and then tell it which family I want to use to place in my project, and just simply place that in there. As I do this, it is removing it off this list. So right now, that list is looking at the equipment that's not placed. And so as you can see, that list is starting to get smaller as I place this, so I can't put something on there twice. But this is establishing that XYZ location so it knows exactly where it's located at in the database, so that we can then start routing the cables once we get the equipment in there. If you have something, like I said, if you already have a piece of equipment that's already there, we can just point to it and tell it that we're going to use that equipment for the equipment that's in the database. And so, for example, those two panels that I've got in that room are already placed. I don't have to place them again. I can just point to them and use those. And so I can just use this assign data to equipment and point to the panel board, and now it knows that panel is located in that electrical room. So again, fairly simple as far as putting equipment in there. It's just placing families is all it is. But now once we have the equipment in there, then we can start routing and drawing our raceways. So if we look at starting to draw the conduit and our raceways in there, like I said, we can use the out-of-the-box Revit Raceway, the conduit commands that are there. There's nothing wrong with that, but the program does give us a tool in there that will automatically draw or model the conduit for us. And this is the only program that I've ever seen that will automatically model conduit for you. So the purpose of this is to kind of give you an ability to quickly get some values in there as far as links, and quickly get an estimate for a bill of material in there without having to do a lot of modeling to get there. And so let me kind of show you this. Back in my project, I've already got some conduit model that I've used just using the Revit model conduit command. But for everything else, I'll let the program automatically draw it for me. So I'm going to use my Aeries Cool Tools palette over here to help me do that. And I'm just going to give it some key information. In here, I'm going to select the equipment, and then I'm going to give it a general direction and elevation, and it's going to be able to draw this for me. So let me begin just by selecting the equipment. And it's going to list all the equipment up there in my Cool Tools palette. And then I'm going to give it a general direction, like the Z direction and then the Y, or the Z and then the X, or the X and then the Z, and a general elevation there as far as the height of that conduit, and simply hit the route conduit or button there. And like I said, it already knows from the database what's connected to what, and so it's just finding a path and routing this conduit and drawing it for me. And this is real time. It's not sped up or anything like that. So in real time, I've got all my conduit now connected and modeled in there. Like I said, the purpose of this is to do a quick estimate, so you can get some quick numbers there, but it is Revit conduit. So if we want to go in and tweak this and modify this, we're free to do that. If we want to change the size of it or anything like that, it's just Revit conduit. Initially, it kind of models all this to the center of each piece of equipment, but once it's in there, we're free to start nudging this around and moving it around anywhere we want to offset it however we want to. And we can turn this into our actual, construction model here. But it generates that conduit automatically. And to me, even, it's not going to clash it or anything like that, but if it can get it in there, it's easier to tweak it and to move it around than it is to start from scratch and draw the whole thing from scratch. And so even if, I could use some of it, not all of it, but whatever, it does get it in there, and it is conduit, and it is also sizing that conduit based on the loads that we have and the cables that are connected to those pieces of equipment. It's actually sizing that conduit appropriately based on NEC standards. So that's very powerful. That's probably one of the most powerful things that I've got in the program is being able to automatically route and draw that conduit for you. Once the conduit is there, we do need a raceway connecting the equipment. But once we have the the raceways drawn, the next step is actually routing the wire and cables. And this is a step that probably not very many people are doing today. Just from our poll over there, it looks like 42% of you are doing this up from 2D drawings, just measuring 2D drawings. This is actually going to use our Raceway to actually put the cable in there, and we're going to be able to automatically see the paths that the cables are following. So this is going to put that intelligence inside of our conduit. As far as the picks and clicks, it's pretty easy. Let me just kind of walk you through it. I'll start again just by selecting the equipment that I want to route to. So I'll select all of my equipment, and it's going to list it up there as far as my equipment. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it to show me, the cables that are either routed or not routed. I don't have any routed yet, but either way, it's going to list all the cables, and it's getting that cable information again from our database, from the information that we put in there. If we want to see before we route it what it's going to do, at the bottom we do have a feeder section down here that's listing out each piece of equipment, and it's listing out the source and the number of sets and the actual conduit size and the cable type that's going to be in there. To route it, I'm simply going to hit the route button. It's going to think for a second, and it's really not going to do much to my model. I'm not going to visually see anything, but if I do want to see it, I do have a show button that I can pick on, and when I pick on show, it does highlight all the routes that it used for that cable. So it highlights it in orange, and so we can see the exact paths that it used to get that in there. And if you look closely, I do have one piece of conduit that's coming off that transformer off the backside of my building that's still green, that it's not orange. And that's simply because I drew that one in there, but I drew an extra piece of conduit. I drew a spare piece of conduit in there that's not being used. And so you can see that there is an empty conduit in there that's not being used in there. But again, this is putting the intelligence in the conduit. So now the database understands what wires, what cables are inside of our conduit, and we can begin doing all kinds of calculations. So I want to show you next a calculation that we can do using what we call the pool calculator. And this is a very powerful tool that we got inside the program that will give us lots of information. Let me just kind of walk us through this tool and show you how it works. Again, I'll begin by selecting the equipment, or this time I'm just going to select on a piece of conduit and tell it that I want to do a pull calculation of the wires and cables that are in that conduit. So it's going to open up this pull calculator dialog box, and it's going to first of all show me every wire or cable that's in that conduit. I've got a brown, orange, yellow, green. It's going to give me the cable description. This is using Southwire's cables. I'll talk about that in just a second, but it has got their stock number in there. It's got the exact length of that cable. It's telling me where it's coming from, where it's going to, and it's giving me the maximum tension that's recommended from the manufacturer. In the middles, where it's doing the actual pull calculations, and if anything was beyond what the manufacturer recommendation was, it would highlight these in yellow. So I'm okay with this one. There's nothing highlighted in yellow. But if I did have a problem, I've got some tools at the bottom to kind of maybe help me figure out how to pull these cables through there without having too much tension. Maybe just reverse the pull. I got a reverse the pull option on the bottom that I could use. Sometimes that makes it better. Or I could change the bend radius of the elbows or upsize the conduit, whatever I needed to do to try to make sure that I'm below that recommendation there. Then we also have on the right side of this over here, we do have information about the conduit itself. It's telling me this 2-inch EMT that is 36.5% full, and it's very small as far as the jam probability, so it's probably okay. So that's there. And then if we do have the load information in there, it will give us the voltage drop information as well. And this is true accurate voltage drop, whereas I know Revit has a parameter called voltage drop, but that's based on an assumed length in there. It's not an exact length, it's an estimate. And this is using the exact length of the cable to give us true accurate voltage drop information, something Revit can't do today. So again, lots of information is in this dialog box, and this is very powerful. And we can do this for any piece of conduit. We can grab any conduit and quickly do a pull calculation. This will also help us if you do have a run, that maybe you do have to have a pull box in there because you have so many, I guess your total bend degrees is beyond code. Maybe you have more than 360 degrees of bend or whatever, and you got to have a pull box. This will kind of let you know, do we have to pull that cable in and out of that pull box because the tension's too great, or can we just go ahead and pull it through, put the pull box in there by code to meet code and just go ahead and pull it through because this is telling me the cable's safe to be pulled through. It'll give you situations like that as far as being able to plan your pulls and know how to pull them in there. It also has ability to create all kinds of reports and schedules. This is a picture of what we call the feeder schedule plus. We're probably all kind of familiar with what a typical feeder schedule has in it. This has all that information in it plus some additional information. So there's the name for it. So let me kind of show you this. This is being able to generate this from the live model. So I can just select the equipment that I want to, select all my equipment and tell it that I want to generate the feeder schedule plus. This is going to open this up in Excel. And in this Excel file here, it's going to list out each piece of equipment. It's going to tell me the destination for each equipment, the equipment size, the voltage information, the feeder tag information, all that information is going to be there. If I scroll over a little bit, it's going to give me all the conduit information as far as the size and type of conduit. It's also going to give me the exact lengths in there of the conduit and the exact lengths of the circuit. And notice that the circuit conduit, the circuit length and the conduit length are different. And that's because I've told it that I wanted a makeup link in there, and you can make that makeup value length any length you want to, but it's going to automatically add that to the length of your cable. And then it's also giving me all the tension information that pull calculator did for me. So we got all the tension information, and it tries to point out warnings here. So here's a warning that says 82% fill exceeds NEC code. This is not one of the ones that it automatically drew in there. This is one of the ones that I drew manually, but I drew it too small. I drew a 3-inch piece of conduit. It probably should have been a 4-inch piece of conduit or whatever. It's too small and it's too full. So it's pointing that out and highlighting that highlighting that here in the feeder schedule. So again, very valuable information that we can use in our project that's coming from our live model, extracting in the information from our model that we can use. Another tool that I wanted to point out here is called the Cable Management Configurator. And this is primarily for contractors. I don't think the designers would use this particular tool, but this will assist in the ordering process. And I mentioned earlier that this has the Southwire cable stock numbers in here. All the cables that Southwire manufacture are preloaded into this program, every cable type they make. But with that said, we can use other cable types if we need to. We can load in make any cable type we need to, but it just comes preloaded with Southwire. But this is going to assist in the ordering process. And I know that ordering cable is you want to be careful because cable's not cheap, and so one typo in ordering cable, if we put an extra 0 in there, we're buying too much cable and we could be wasting money there. So this is going to simplify the ordering process and also ensure that the links and values that we need are correct. So let me kind of walk you through this. Again, this is coming from the live model. I can come over there and just pick a piece of equipment and tell it to show me the cables that are coming out of that equipment. And then when I go to my wire management configurator tool, I can start configuring this on a reel. And so I can pick my reel and tell it how I want this cable to be loaded on the reel. Do I want it to be parallel or on the outside or inside, or how do we want this stacked on the reel? Once we kind of configure that on the reel, we can put it on the reel, and first of all, it will tell me if the reel's big enough to hold this cable. And so the first time I do this, it's going to tell me that nope, this cable's not going to fit on this reel. And so I can upsize my reel and get me a larger reel, and now I'm okay. Now I've got a smaller reel that's 85% full. It's giving me the exact weight of that reel as well, so I know exactly how heavy it is. And then the next step is I can go ahead and place this on a truck. So this is going to be how it's going to be delivered on the truck. And if I've got a situation where I can actually park the truck and pull the cable off the truck without unloading the reel, I can position that reel on the truck where it best fits the project. And then I can actually go ahead and make a release, and I can enter in an order number or a PO number and some key dates in there as far as delivery dates and information like that. And it's going to go ahead and make me an Excel file that I can send straight to Southwire to process the order. And so I didn't have to type in a single thing here. It's all coming from the model there as far as all the information, all the cables there. Southwire can take this Excel file and enter it straight into their cell system and quickly process your order and get it to your site quicker. Southwire once told me that the slowest part of ordering cable is the manual entry that they have to do to manually enter all the information in for the order on their side. And so with this is giving them a spreadsheet that they can input straight into their system and do this process a whole lot quicker and get it to your job site quicker. So again, very, very, very powerful tool that you can use to in the ordering process of your cable. So with that, let me just kind of summarize real quick some of the benefits of this. First of all, a feature benefit is fast and accurate estimating. With that automatic routing of cables, a conduit in there that automatically models that, we can quickly get some accurate links in there, and this is going to help maintain profits and margins and make and winnable profits for projects in there. So I think that's a return on the investment there. Another key feature would be database-driven solution that reduces data entry and creates constant deliverables. As we enter information into our programs today, we may be entering it into multiple programs multiple times, but this is going to reduce errors and design costs while I think improving overall quality for your projects. Another key benefit would be design changes are easily reflected up and downstream the model. I really didn't point this out, but if something changes on your project, maybe a piece of equipment changes or something down, once construction starts. That never happens, I know, but let's just pretend like it does. I'm just joking. Let's just say a piece of equipment changes. When we go back into the database, maybe the horsepower of a piece of equipment changes or whatever. We simply make one data entry change on the database and change the horsepower of a piece of equipment. It's going to automatically look to see if that cable is still sized appropriately or if it needs to upsize the cable. It will also look at the raceway that cable is in and look to see if we need to upsize that raceway. It's also going to recalculate the pull calculations to make sure our pull calculations are correct. And it's also going to update and automatically modify our bill of material so that our bill of material and estimates are correct there. So, making one simple data entry change is going to push that change all the way downstream so that everything's updated there. So of course that's going to reduce delivery time and design cost if we can track those changes as well. Accurate bill of materials, these are going to be very accurate. Like I said, we can distinguish what we want the makeup link value to be for each cable in there. It's going to add that in there, but it's going to automatically give us that bill of material, which will increase the coordination downstream, I believe. Constructability in the model that is up to NEC standards. It's going to do those pull calculations, making sure that we can actually pull the cable through the conduit, that we're not damaging the cable. This is going to reduce time and work, rework in there, and it's got NEC standards in there as far as making sure that we're not too full or anything like that in our conduit, and making sure that we got a number of, not too many bins or anything like that in there as well. And finally, the automatic cable and wire routing, I think, is just going to reduce delivery time. This is the question that I started with: is how are you doing this today? I think this will drastically improve your process of how you're routing cables or getting cable links for your projects. Doing this using the model, using the data in the model, it's going to reduce your delivery time, elimination of errors prone to those manual calculations that you may be doing today. So lots of benefits there in returns on investments. As far as how this is licensed, I did want to point out that this is sold and licensed as a cloud license, which means basically you can purchase however many seats you want to purchase, and then that license is up in the cloud. And then your users can go out and ping, and when you start the program, it will ping and grab a license for that user. So, you could share this among multiple people in your office as far as the license there. Just however many licenses you have, only that number of people can use it at that given time, I guess is how it works there. But it does give you the benefit to install it or use it on multiple computers, even though you don't have that many licenses, but only so many can use it at a given time. Another question that I get a lot is how is this implemented? What does the implementation schedule look like? How much training is involved and stuff like that? And this is just a rule of thumb. We do like to come in and get to know your company a little bit better and get to know your workflow. Get to know what you're trying to get out of the program. So this is just a ballpark numbers here, but basically we like to come in and give you 2 days of startup training. Those 2 days will be teaching you how to start the project, how to get the information into the database, how to get the project going. And we like to time this with a real project. So we'll take your live actual project that you're working on to do this. So it's not a fictitious project that it's just you're going to throw away. This is actual billable work that we can use here. Once we kind of get you started after those first couple of days of training, we're going to cut you loose and let you work on it for a while. And then depending on the project and the timing of the project, we'll come back and do additional training as you need it, as your project gets to that point on the schedule. Just for example, you don't need to know how to use that ordering tool in there on day one. But when you get ready to order the cable, that's when you need to learn how to use that ordering tool that was in there. So we'll time our training with your project and come back and teach you parts of it just as you need it. That way you don't learn everything in one big chunk and forget everything by the time you actually need to use it that way. So again, this is training for your project on your live projects, and in this process, we will be developing what we call a project type template, and this project template then can be used on your future projects. And so once you have your main cable types in there, your cable database in there, once you have stuff in there, you know, we can use that as a template for your next project. And if you have multiple type projects, maybe you do both industrial and, I don't know, healthcare and maybe educational, those may be 3 different templates that we help you develop for those particular types of projects in there.